everybody. Welcome to Pink Shade. It's Mary Payne here, and today I have a super exciting interview for you guys. It's Johnathan Walton and Emily D. Baker of the hit podcast, Season 4, Queen of the Con. Now, you guys know Johnathan and Emily. So Johnathan, of course, has had Queen of the Con. The first season was about his friend that conned him. Then, of course, you know Emily from all her legal coverage and the Emily D. Baker Show and her YouTube. And, you know, you guys, like I just told her before we started, I covered her covering Johnny Depp. That she covers everything. So anything you want to know legal, you go follow Emily. So welcome, first and foremost, welcome.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you.
Likewise.
Yes.
And in the company of Emily D. Baker. It's amazing. I'm grateful. Thank you.
I was just glad I get to do an interview with Johnathan because we've only gotten to have conversations one-on-one for Queen of the Con, which has been so much fun. But now we get to talk about what we created. It's a really, really fun opportunity. So thanks for having us.
Absolutely.
Good. And I know that both of you were also really excited to meet me. And I know you meant to say that, but that's okay.
Absolutely, Mary.
How do you not live in Los Angeles talking like that?
Oh my God. I live in the DC area, so maybe that's a hint.
I mean, same. It's different types of stars.
Different type of narcissist, I guess.
Speaking of narcissists.
Yeah, speaking of narcissists, so this is the 4th season of Queen of the Con. Now, remind everybody, Johnathan, about the first 3 seasons. Just keep us and tell us what's happening with those con artists now.
Yeah, season 1 was the Irish heiress, Mayor Smith, who conned me out of close to $100,000. And I didn't, and I brought her to justice. I put her in jail even after authorities turned me away, saying, there's no crime, you gave her the money. So I just told that story. I never thought it would be such a hit with people and that iHeart would want more con artist stories. So season 2, we did Lizzie Mulder, the OC savior. She conned her circle of friends out of $1.4 million pretending to be an accountant. Season 3, we did con artist of con artists, Danielle Miller, who, my God, figured out a way to impersonate anyone, walk into the bank and clean out their accounts. It's insane. We have this 5-hour police interrogation interview where she pretends to be the victim for like 5 hours under police questioning until he walks in with like 25 IDs. Is like, who are you today? That was insane. And the season 4, Jen Shah, the con artist of our time, who by day is a real housewife of Salt Lake City, but by night she's scamming thousands of people out of millions of dollars. And Emily D. Baker covered this all on her YouTube show and on her podcast, the Emily Show podcast, brilliantly. And we were able to team up and present a side of the Jen Shah story that no one knows. No one's heard it until now.
Yeah, I agree. So when you guys decided, okay, we're done with Danielle What's-Her-Face. So now we're going to move on to the next one. I assume before you're done with Danielle What's-Her-Face, you're like, this Jen Shah thing's going on. You're like, this would be a good one. So you and Eliza kind of got together and then brought Emily on board?
Yes. It's all Eliza Rosen, AYR Media. It was her idea. And it was happening now. And I thought maybe it's too soon. The dust hasn't really settled yet. And Eliza was like, that's just the point. Let's do it. And I got to see Emily D. Baker's coverage of it. And I started watching and following Emily D. Baker. And my God, she really gets into the nitty gritty. She's a former prosecutor.
I do.
She reads these court records with a different eye than a regular person because she can tell you what's behind the records based on her experience. And that was just invaluable in this season of Queen of the Con.
So, so Emily, kind of outline for us, for people that maybe don't know and just listen to Queen of the Con, not having that Real Housewives scholar background, explain exactly what her con is to sort of a layperson. Like, this morning I probably got 4 emails that are probably from like Jen Shah's counterparts. Like, you have a package that hasn't been delivered, click here, or these kind of things. People can kind of grasp it. So kind of explain it, what she did exactly.
It's so funny because cons, once you start looking at them, they all have these similarities. But if you don't know what to look for, you're like, oh, well, this is totally normal. This is just how this works. And that's what's so difficult, particularly with really charming and persuasive con artists, is that you want or the victim wants to please them and wants to believe them and doesn't think that this person who is, wealthy and well respected and on television would ever steal from them. But she was running multiple businesses that were doing this. So when she talked about the fact that she did lead generation, that's true. She did generate leads off of the internet, but then she sold those leads to different telemarketing sales floors. And those telemarketers were selling products that did not exist, that they knew would have zero return. And then when people would call to complain, instead of refunding their money, they would hook them and sell them more products until they got all of the money they could. And they were telling people, this is how you can get money out of your 401k. This is how you can get more lines of credit. Oh, let us do the debt consolidation for you. Oh, we can help with the tax. So they were trying to keep people in house so they could keep milking them for more money, and nobody would raise a red flag, because if they had gone to another lender or another, tax professional, they would have raised the red flags of where is this money going. And a lot of it targeted people who were over the age of 55, which the US government considers elderly. Write your senator if you don't like that rule. But for the law, that is the age that is considered, taking advantage of somebody who's vulnerable. I think it's, there's a two, I have lots of thoughts on that, but we'll get to that another day.
Yeah,
So
okay.
she was kind of pulling people in who weren't super internet savvy to have online businesses and telling them, we'll just start a website and then it'll just make money and it'll be great. And so people were getting hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt. And this ended up being a massive multi-million dollar fraud. And she ended up agreeing to pay over 9 million in restitution. Her co-defendants ended up paying millions in restitution. And all of her co-defendants did some type of probation or jail time. And there's only one left to be sentenced. And we'll see that in September.
And that's Stuart Smith.
Okay.
We might need a bonus episode, Jonathan.
I think so. I do. I see Stuart might walk away with no jail time. It seems like he's
He
being
might.
super helpful, right?
He might walk away with probation and restitution. He has no criminal record, and he has cooperated with the feds from the second they crashed down on his head. So we'll
Yeah.
see.
Yeah. Yeah, and we were led to believe on the show, of course, that this over 55-year-old man himself was her assistant. Like, this guy's getting
Mhm.
her dry cleaning and go picking up her pharmacy and feeding her dog and, probably running a kid to baseball practice. It, in no world was this guy ever her assistant. She's always like, he's my first assistant. This is my third assistant. Feeding him a banana, like, come on, make me money. And then they had that long, heartfelt talk where they're walking with the mountains behind them, like, you've given up so much for me, for my business. And meanwhile, we're all like, what is your business?
What
Like,
is
we
Yeah.
don't, what is your business? It's
Yeah.
not like a Meredith Marks earring store where we could see it, you
Right.
know? It
And
was,
what differentiates con artist Jen Shah from all the other con artists I've ever investigated, you know, personally and professionally, is she was running a criminal enterprise. She had thousands of employees who she was teaching how to con, and a lot of them didn't even know they were conning, because I worked in telemarketing. When you work in telemarketing, you're just reading a script on a screen that Jen Shaw wrote. You don't know you're
mhm,
scamming people. You don't know the money back guarantee you're giving to these people is not real. You're just reading words on the screen, and you just want to make a sale so you can get paid at the end of the week. A lot of her underlings who were scammers were doing it unwittingly. They didn't know. And when they found out, they either quit or it appealed to them, so they went deeper in. And that's
mm,
how Jen Shaw herself got started with Prosper Inc. in Utah, which started as a legitimate telemarketing job for her. She quickly realized, oh, we're kind of scamming people. I like that. I'm going to go deeper into that. She was head of their recruiting department before she left, and Prosper incurred the wrath of the FTC, and they had to change their name and pop up as something else. But it was the same kind of telemarketing scam where you're preying on people's hopes and dreams of what they want to do with their lives, and you're dangling it in front of them. I can make this happen for you, money back guarantee. Just give me $5,000. Money exchange hands. No. I need $2,000 more. More money exchange hands. Hey, you want to get
Yep.
your money back? I need $2,000 more. And these poor people get sucked in until they're bankrupt.
It's that
it-
sunk cost. They want to keep chasing it to try to get even,
yes,
almost like gambling, right? You want to keep
yeah,
chasing it to get even. And then there's a huge component of embarrassment and shame for victims that fraudsters play on, because they feel that once somebody starts to suspect it's a scam, they might not want to go tell their loved ones because they don't want someone to be like, how could you ever fall for this? What were you even thinking?
Right.
Couldn't you tell it's a scam? So then they get locked into this cycle of embarrassment or shame, and they don't want to tell anyone, and then it keeps going and going. But Jen Shaw, I think, convinced herself that these were just marketing tactics that maybe were in the gray zone of marketing tactics. I still think she did not fully appreciate that this was criminal behavior even till the day she took the plea. She should have known, but I think she was able to convince herself that after the FTC, this was just marketing. But after the FTC came down and the businesses were changing, Jen Shaw was like, we need to get sneakier about it. We need to put the companies in other people's names. We need to communicate on encrypted apps. She knew she needed to hide her behavior, which says to me she knew that she could get popped for this. I think
You
she
need to go
convinced
to
herself to sleep
Kosovo.
at night. Yeah, we need to move to Kosovo. And then legitimate businesses don't keep getting their payment processors shut down, right? These companies had to change names because the credit card companies kept shutting down because there were so many chargebacks.
Yeah.
So there were so many red flags with these companies. And when you start looking at the Better Business Bureau reviews, they're absolutely heartbreaking.
Yeah.
So, how long was she at this before she was like, you know what a great idea is to go on a reality show? So, how many was it like 2017? Like, what was the year where she really started and then sort of got deep
No, I
into it where
think
she
this
was
was
like the head?
Oh, yeah. She
well over
started
a
in
decade before
telemarketing in
TV.
2006. She started in
Yeah.
telemarketing and quickly rose up the ranks of Prosper, that company in Utah that proved to be scammy, and even and then just got deeper and deeper into it. So, court records say more than 10 years, but I think closer to 20 years.
What you touched on these text encryption devices, and this is what I want to talk about because by the way, I am almost an elder. I am close to 55, and so how dare they? But
It
I,
feels super rude, right? It feels
yeah,
super rude, but that's where the law pins the line of like now you're vulnerable is at 55, which
the
is
minute you turn 50, you
bananas.
start getting stuff in the mail from AARP, and you're like, What? But, retired, I wish. Um, but, I've had, older people in my family that have gotten those calls of like, "This is your granddaughter, she's stuck, she needs money." 2 older people in my family have gotten that call, and another older person in my family was doing something online, and this kinda goes to what you're saying about the embarrassment. They won't say what, but they're like, "I was doing something online, and it popped up, and I just, like, gave them my Social Security number." And now I'm thinking that was probably not a good idea. And, we had to say to the older person, "Oh my gosh, call the Social Security office right now." Like,
Mhm.
and it's like, okay, I'm embarrassed that I didn't quite understand that. And so now I'm going to ask you an almost 55-year-old sort of embarrassing question. I don't understand about the text encryption. So if you use something like, in my mind, like WhatsApp, and it's encrypted, so it comes up jumbled for anybody who's trying to hack in, but obviously the government was able to get whatever was those encrypted texts. So it's not really a fail safe. Explain to me about the encrypted texting.
Do you want me to go first? I'll go first. I think a lot of people think that it can't be retrieved on the other end.
Okay.
So there is a premise that it cannot be retrieved by law enforcement. And without getting too deep into it to help people be better criminals, some of that is true and some of that is not true, depending on what apps are being used. So what I think was most telling for Jen Shaw is that they went from text messaging, which is very easy to get. They went from text messaging to, I believe they were using
Telegram.
Telegram. That's right, the Telegram
Mm.
encrypted app. But it's the switch to the app that shows you that she knew she needed to try to hide her communications better. But some of these apps allow you to delete a message on both sides or unsend a message on both sides. The telecom companies don't show a record of the messages being sent. Telecom communications are really easy to get by law enforcement. The
Yeah.
messaging apps are a bit more challenging. It doesn't mean it can't always be done, but it is a bit more challenging. It's like Snapchat, right? Kids think, oh, you send a snap and it disappears and it's not being held anywhere on the back end. Law enforcement can get a lot of that too.
Yeah, because I mean,
Totally.
it absolutely is encrypted. But what ultimately helped do Jen Shaw in, they confiscated her cell phones. She had many cell phones. So it doesn't matter how encrypted the app is. Once you have the phone in your possession as law enforcement, you can get into that phone and extract all those messages. And in the podcast, oh my God, we found the most amazing actress who sounds just like Jen Shaw to bring
Literally,
this
that's on my list.
money. Okay.
Who was this actress playing Jen Shaw? Because she sounds just like her with that all the time.
I mean, with the
Yeah.
voice you put on, I put audition notices out in LA, in New York, in Atlanta, and I found this woman in Orange County. Her name is Courtney Hetrick. She's a voiceover artist, and she's a huge Housewives fan. So she had
Okay.
that Jen
I
Shaw
love
voice
it.
at the ready, and we were just bowled over. She sounds just like her. Never before. We use recreations all the time in Queen of the Con, and we usually at the end say, by the way, the actress playing blah blah blah. But she was so spot on off the top. Episode one, we had to say, that's not actually Jen Shaw. That's an actress we hired, to go over to read the court records and bring them to life for us. Because yeah, and these text messages that did Jen Shaw in contradict the narrative she was selling for years, that she's being prosecuted because she's a woman of color and she did nothing wrong and she doesn't know. Meanwhile, she's texting people, your go-to word is, I don't know. Stewart,
Yeah.
Stewart, when he gets interviewed, what to say. I don't
Yeah.
know, or I can't recall, but I don't know is best. Like, she knew what she was doing from the
And
get.
she was asking the sales floor if they were getting soft or if they were feeling too sorry for the victims, and she was like coming down on them for
Yeah.
not going harder after money of victims. It's wild to see how aggressive she is in, no, get the money. Are you getting soft? Have you lost your touch? What's wrong with you? Get in there, get back, do it. And so she definitely knew what they were doing in her text messages. Your tech will always tell on you. Your tech will always tell on you. Your car will tell, your phone will tell, your Apple Watch will tell.
Yeah.
All this is how things are really prosecuted these days, is through your tech.
I mean, you look at like the Murdoch case. I mean, that really kind of hinged on that Snapchat, that
A
one
hundred
message,
percent. A
and then
hundred
you think
percent.
about the Brian Koberger case, a lot of that is hinging on the GPS of his phone that he did turn off and then he turned it back on while he was circling. I mean, you think about things like this, you're like, I mean, not to be funny, but you really, it's very hard to get away with murder in the technological world that we live in, unless you are an off grid kind of a person. Your phone is always following you. When we get done today, all of our phones will have ads for things that we've talked about here, even though they're off. They're
No,
always
and
listening.
that's my response to the conspiracy theorist people who are like, the vaccine is a chip. They're trying to monitor you. I'm like, we carry these cell phones everywhere we go. Everyone's monitoring everything all the time. They don't need to
Yeah.
chip you into a chip vaccine, people. You're already doing it.
I'm always like, let them follow me. I don't care. I just want to go on an airplane and go on a trip. I don't care if they follow me. I'm not doing anything wrong. So let's talk about the offshore accounts that you mentioned. Okay, so the question is, she mentions these in these text messages, right? It's Kosovo. She flew to Palm Beach for the day and came back and met with this guy to figure this out. I'm like, who's that guy? That sounds shady as shit. So she finds out a place where she could put the money in Kosovo, Croatia, whatever she said. So how's all that happening? How, if they know this, is our government unable to then look into where that money is? I just feel like they're watching Coach like a hawk, like, how's he living? How are the kids living? It's because they have to pay all this restitution. So explain to me about the offshore accounts and how that affects people getting paid back. Looking to budget your food expenses for the back to school season? Get more bang for your bite with America's best value meal kit, Every Plate. Every Plate is 25% cheaper than grocery shopping. That's right, no hidden fees. You can count on great value week after week, plus only pay for what you need with the pre-portioned ingredients. You guys know how much I hate cleaning the kitchen, and it's so amazing when Every Plate shows up and they give me exactly what I need, nothing extra. So when dinner is over, I can actually sit down and watch my programs. Okay. They also have this thing called dinner to lunch dishes, which is cook once, eat twice. These are tasty feeling meals for dinner and lunch the next day. Each recipe is carefully crafted to ensure the ingredients can be easily repurposed so you don't feel like you're just eating leftovers. Plus, save time making lunches on busy weekdays. There's nothing I hate more than making lunch on a busy weekday. I'm not even kidding. If I have to go downstairs and make lunch, sometimes I just don't do it. So, with every plate, you can save time making lunch on busy weekdays and do most of the work the night before. So, try new favorites such as sweet soy chicken tacos. Oh my gosh, guys, I've had that. Delish. Chicken stir fry. So you make the chicken tacos at night, and then the next day you have chicken stir fry. You guys, it's genius. They have another one, chicken sausage flatbreads, which my husband loves, plus tomato pasta for the next day. And there's more. And there's just a slight upcharge, and this is for a limited time only, but definitely take advantage of that. So make the sustainable choice this August. Every plate offsets 100% of their delivery emissions, and their meals have 31% lower carbon footprint than the average supermarket meals of the same portion. And all of the material, well, nearly all of them packaging materials are curbside recyclable in most areas in the US. You have to check your area, but we put all of ours in the recycling, and it makes you also feel good about that. All right. So get $1.49 per meal by going to everyplate.com/podcast and entering code 49 pink shade. Get started with EveryPlate for just $1.49 per meal by going to everyplate.com/podcast and entering code 49 pink shade. Okay, you got that? Everyplate.com/podcast and enter code 49 pink shade. That's up to $110 value.
Yeah. Listen, that's once you move your operations offshore, you can operate as a completely new company, presumably not under the watch of the federal government, presumably off the radar. But by the time Jen Shah moved her stuff offshore, they were onto her. They were monitoring her. They were investigating her so they could follow. It's like Emily D. Baker says again and again, follow the money. They were following the money, and that money went to Kosovo, and so did their investigation. So meanwhile, she's pretending to be innocent. Meanwhile, when you ask her when she's asked what she does, she's like, every time you click an ad on the internet, I get paid. I'm like, it's not really true,
That's
Jen.
not quite
No,
it.
not it. Yeah.
So, I mean, it's a great way. If, the truth of the matter is, and Emily, correct me if I'm wrong, if she wasn't already under investigation, I mean, I'm reminded of the Paul Manafort trial, right? If you remember these gazillions of dollars Paul Manafort was getting from the Russian government, nobody noticed. He wasn't filing taxes. He would buy his house with a bank draft from the Russian government. Nobody noticed. Nobody noticed for decades until he was under criminal investigation. Then they started digging. Oh, wait a minute. You bought your house with a bank draft from Russia? What? So
Yeah.
Jen Shaw would have been fine if they weren't already looking into her businesses. And they saw when she did all the Kosovo stuff. We're like, oh, let's chase that down.
And that's why she got charged with money laundering and moving money around in a way that was not per regulations. The regulations on how we move money have gotten much stricter. Ask Sam Bankman-Fried and how that's all going for him and how money gets moved around. But it can be difficult. Again, I don't want people to crime better. It can be difficult if you're not already under investigation. There's Murdaugh money that is somewhere. There is Murdaugh
Sure.
money missing for sure.
Yep. Yep.
Tom Girardi, to tie it back to Housewives, Tom Girardi was moving money around for decades without anybody noticing, with clients going, it seems like I'm not getting paid, and it just going by the wayside until this man's in his 80s and in a conservatorship. So it absolutely happens that banks don't always flag these transactions, and things don't get caught. And it seems that the more money you have and you're moving around, the less likely it is you'll get caught. The less money you have, the more likely it is that something will get flagged, which is really interesting. So, I mean, I guess if you're going to go big, the sentencing's higher, but maybe you'll get away with it for longer for a little bit.
Yeah, and I wanted to ask you about that coach part of it. So I was interested to hear on your podcast that coach, because it's just so tricky, right? It's like he comes across as such like a saint, like an angel that is just like the voice of reason, and he's out there giving these pep talks to his wife, his kids, his players, and he's so zen. And then he's got to deal with this whack job of a wife, right? But what I thought was so telling was when they were in New York, and he, as a lawyer himself, is looking at all the evidence going, like, "This is not good." But I think he had to know before. Like, lots of the text messages show, and the fashion designer you guys interviewed say he's around. He definitely wasn't completely innocent.
I was blown away listening to Jonathan's conversation with Koa.
Mhm.
I was blown away too because, I mean, on one hand, and this is just Jonathan Walton, private citizen talking. Uh, I don't
Allegedly.
think he was a mastermind or orchestrating anything. Did he
Right.
go along with it? Oh, absolutely. I mean, he was in all these meetings. Koa Johnson, the fashion designer we interviewed in the podcast, tells the story of the night Stewart misplaced $8 million, and both
Whoops.
Coach and Jen Shaw are yelling at him. In the dead of the night, where's our money? So you can't say he didn't know what she was doing, but as Homeland Security Special Agent Ricky Patel points out in the podcast, knowing about a crime doesn't make you culpable, doesn't mean you can get charged with a crime. Obviously, the feds, and that's the thing about the federal government that Emily talks about, they're not going to charge you unless they are nearly 100% sure they can get a conviction. So
Mhm.
maybe they could link Coach to certain, improprieties, but they didn't have enough for that 100% certainty of a conviction. So they let him off. And no one's watching him now. I can't guarantee you. Private citizen Johnathan Walton thinks there's money hidden in Kosovo and all these other countries that Coach and Jen Shaw can live on for the rest of their lives when she gets out.
That's my question, is that, whether or not he was involved in the business, he just knew what she was doing and was like, "Do your thing, don't tell me about it. I'm gonna go coach some football players."
What's real
I to
interesting to me is that Coach left his law firm in 2012, the same time that Jen started doing this on her own. So he leaves practicing in a really prestigious law firm to coach football. And I get it. I left practicing law traditionally as well. So no shade on that. The timing is really interesting to me that it coincides with either her making more money or her running this business where he could now be put in a precarious situation. But in
Mm,
text messages we saw in the prosecution, Jen is telling Stewart, Coach will help us figure out this deposition. He'll help us navigate the FTC investigating. So if he didn't know before that the government was not believing what Jen was doing was on the up and up, he knew at the time of the FTC investigation in 2016. And Jen was telling Stewart, we'll help you. Stewart ended up pleading to obstruction of justice and saying that Jen told him to lie in his depositions and coached him how to lie in his depositions. So I'm sure Jen's side of that story would be, no, we didn't. It's all on Stewart. But that's Stewart pled to that additional charge, I think, so that he could testify against her if she went to trial and testify that she coached him to lie to to the FTC and in those depositions. And it seems that from text messages, Coach was right there alongside her. But if the feds did not have him actively engaged in text messages, actively moving money around, because Jen could be lying in those texts, right? Saying, oh, Coach will help us, and he still didn't know. So if the feds can't
right.
prove it, they're not going to go after him. And so they need signed, sealed, delivered. And it seems that his name was on nothing. And maybe that's because he was a lawyer and he kept himself removed from it enough that he wasn't going to get you know, pinged by the feds. But the feds are definitely not. They have a low tolerance for uncertainty when it comes to prosecution.
So they're not gonna just continue to try to go after him. It's like they got Jen, which seemed to be the head of the snake, and so that leads us to you guys talking about Stewart, first assistant. So what explain to me exactly what's happening here, because everybody's like, seems like Stewart was really almost like her business partner, even though she tried to act like he was getting her dry cleaning. Um, what's going on with that? We know nothing about what he said, right? Or do we?
We know some from the text messages. We know some from seeing Jen Shaw get super frustrated with Stewart's statement because what Stewart was going to testify to was provided to Jen shortly before trial, and then
Mhm.
she ended up pleading guilty. So we know that that was going to be kind of impactful. But the cases to Stewart from the very beginning, the day of these arrests, I was like, Stewart's lawyer needs to tell him immediately to tell the feds, I know everything. I will tell you everything because
Yeah.
Jen's on camera so much saying, he's my assistant. eat the banana, make me money. She's on
Mhm.
TV saying, I'm the boss. So the smart play for Stuart, and this is why lawyers need to watch reality TV, but the smart play for Stuart is to say, she is my boss. She directed me to do all of this, and I went along with it. I'll tell you what you need to know. And it
Yeah.
seems that he did that. From the first court appearances, he said, we don't need a hearing. We're going to plea. And then he pled, and his sentencing has dragged out. And in that time, another defendant came in and then also pled guilty. So Stuart is working with the feds based on everything that we've seen. He has been really cooperative with the feds. And once we see sentencing memorandums later this month, I think Stuart's going to get a much more favorable sentencing recommendation because of not just how cooperative he's been, but how fruitful that cooperation is. His cooperation, I think, is what forced Jen to plea. And that's just truly my opinion based on how we saw it play out. But I think his cooperation forced that plea and would have been what convicted her.
So in August or September, he's gonna be sentenced, but before that, there's gonna be documents and things coming out that's gonna tell us what he told the government, which
It'll
is what
tell us
I'm
how
dying to
cooperative
know.
it'll tell us how cooperative he's been. I don't think it'll tell us everything. I think we can kind of piece those things together based on what has happened and based on the fact that Jen got that statement and immediately pled.
Mhm.
We see the text messages from sentencing agreements with Jen. I think his sentencing memos will be um that he was very cooperative, that he facilitated the successful prosecution of multiple defendants with the information given. Exactly what that information is, I don't think will be spelled out. But if he gets probation, I sure hope he talks to somebody. Stuart, we would love to have a chat, man.
Queen of the Con, bonus episode.
And
That's
what
what
I
we
love
need.
about, and Emily brings this up in the podcast so brilliantly, and I hadn't thought of it that way before. The feds love to make a deal more so than at the state
Yeah.
level. The feds will say, "Listen, help us convict these bad people, and we might let you off depending on how good your information is." The feds love to wheel and deal.
The feds are so good at let's make a deal. It's how the college admission scandal broke. The entire college admission scandal broke because somebody was getting investigated for something else and was like, I know you're looking at me for this, but there's this coach taking money down at this university. And it unwound the entire college admission scandal. The feds really do trade in information in a way different than state level prosecutors who are just like, yeah, look, I have 100 robberies on my desk. I don't know what you want me to do. The feds are much more selective about the cases that they prosecute, have a lower caseload of cases with more significant losses of money and criminality. So they are much more picky and they will spend months, if not years, putting together their prosecutions before an arrest is ever made. Where in the state system, often an arrest is made and it's like, okay, figure out what to do with this. And you're
Yeah.
working on a very tight clock. So it's a whole different situation. I got the pleasure of working with the feds before I went to the DA's office, and it was illuminating the way that prosecutions work very differently in different offices.
I think it's a little bit what we saw with like the Todd Chrisley thing. If you take it to trial and waste the people's time and waste the government's money, you're probably going to lose anyway. So you may as well wheel and deal. I mean, I think it's very interesting. People are like, well, the Chrisleys got so much more time than Jen Shaw. And I was like, but they took it to trial and lied, had Meemaw up on the stand lying. Like, had the grandma come up and lie. Like, yeah, they're going to get more time because they were going to lose anyway,
There's
you know?
some stuff in the Chrisley prosecution that still doesn't sit right with me with some of the stuff the IRS agents testified to. There's that one's not as cut and dry for me as some of the others.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just a very high level know about it because I did watch that show when it first came on, but then it became so, like, obviously fake that I was like, "Okay, I'm a better actor than these people. Now come on now."
It's supposed to be reality. There isn't supposed to be acting.
Listen, I'm
This
a reality producer. I can tell you there's not a lot of real. I mean, some shows are more pure than others, but for a lot of
Yeah,
the
I didn't like that conversation on Queen of the Con when you guys talked about when you were saying that, Jonathan, you were like, "So much of this stuff is" I was like,
I
"Don't
mean,
ruin it for me."
because especially shooting here in LA, different shows, everybody wants to be a star. Everyone will do and say anything to be on TV. So people are very easily directable, for lack of a better term. But there are some shows, I've never worked on Housewives, and I am told by multiple sources, the Housewives, those are who those women, are. And there are not a lot of retakes. And the drink throws are the drink throws. And the leg throws are the leg throws.
That's right.
I think the housewives have started studying the craft, and we talk about this on Queen of the Con about whether Jen had kind of studied previous seasons of Housewives. There's a little part of me that longs for like old school first season Jersey Shore, where you've got, 21-year-olds showing up with all their clothes in garbage bags, being like, I don't know what this is, but we're all gonna live in a house and drink all summer. It's interesting now with the, legal letters we're seeing to networks saying that there's going to be a reality reckoning. But Jonathan brought up the point is, especially in LA, there's a next person sitting at the bar that's like, oh,
Yeah.
they don't want to do it, I'll do it. And so
Yeah.
with reality, the bargaining power is a little bit more difficult for reality personalities, because the networks will be like, there's another one, and another one, and another one, and another one. So
Yeah. When I first saw Jen Shaw, episode 1 of Salt Lake City, and then that night, as Andy does when there's a new one, he has them all on Watch What Happens Live together. It was during COVID, so they were all on Zoom, and she had on this, like, giant hat and this gold lame outfit and a one of those,
it's so
microphones that you
good.
get that, and she was like, "Wah, wah, wah," in the microphone. I was like, "Oh, I hate her." Immediately, I was like, "I hate this woman. Like, I don't think that's funny. I think it's annoying. You bug me. You bug me." Um, but let me ask you about this. Speaking of the housewives, so didn't you find it fascinating that on the show we watched in real time, like I was just saying, where they were in that New York hotel room and they were filming them? And as Jen and Coach saw what the prosecution had, which it seems like it was like the day before or 2 days before they got the information, and he's combing through and they're like, Coach is in there just reading all those documents. Like he's like such a saint. And I was like, he's a lawyer. Of course he is. And the fallout of Heather Gay and Meredith, who for some reason had turned and was on Jen's side at that time, they went there to support her. I'm like, free trip to New York. They went there to support her. And then they're so stunned about what happened. And then I think 2 days later, Heather Gay was on a plane to Thailand for Real Housewife Ultimate Girls Trip. And she's still on that trip when they were asking her about it. She was like, still wouldn't say what happened to her eye because obviously it has something to do with Jen. She's just like, "Well, you're my friend. You're my friend. You're my friend till the end." And they were like, "But what she did?" And she was like, "I have to separate it." I'm like, "Do
Yeah, Heather
you?"
was definitely a ride or die for Jen, and I think maybe still is. I think Meredith was curious. Meredith also has been to law school. She has legal training. I think Meredith was curious and was like, I want to see both sides of it. And the best way to get both sides is to show up film and to be there and to see what happens. Because I was getting ready to be in New York for the trial starting. I was stunned when Jen pled.
Yeah,
So I was really, really surprised when she went in and took that plea. But I knew the evidence against her was going to be overwhelming. I knew her lawyers had told her that. We knew that from the earliest days of the filings. And this case, and we talk about it in Queen of the Con, we hadn't talked about it here. This case is the third part of a prosecution of these massive telemarketing floors. So there have been
mm,
two prior rounds of 10 defendants plus that have already been prosecuted. So Jen's lawyers can look at all of those previous defendants and go, no one has gotten off of these charges. No
right.
one has beat this. Some people have gotten better sentences, some people haven't, but you are at the very end of 3 rounds of years and years of prosecutions. These prosecutors know this case inside and out. You're just the next defendant they're plugging in. They've got all of it connected. So we knew this was going to be an uphill battle from the day she was arrested, but I've never seen a federal prosecution play out from arrest to plea on reality television. And I think that's part of what made it so compelling is this case went relatively quickly compared to traditional prosecutions. It went so fast. Most of these cases will take years to wander through. We just didn't see the years wandering through because Jen got arrested at the very end of the scheme. I think based on co-defendants that told on her when they
Yeah.
took their plea deals, because there were 2 plea deals taken about a month and a half before she got arrested. I'm like, oh, those two.
I agree 1,000%. And another thing that we bring up in the podcast, which shocked me, but is typical for narcissists. She knew she was under federal investigation. She knew she had dodged the FTC thing. She knew all of these things, and yet she chose to go on Housewives anyway.
She knew
Well,
her co-defendants had been arrested. She knew it. And we see the text messages with them talking about the co-defendants all being arrested, telling people to go to the office and get the computers out. And she's like, but reality TV seems to be the way to do it.
I mean, that just proves
Girl, no.
this psychopathic narcissist, in Jonathan Walton's opinion, she doesn't care. She thinks she could get away with it. She really believes she could get
Yeah.
away with it.
And you
Totally.
know what? You saw the women on the show wanting to rally behind her when she's saying, "I'm being persecuted. This isn't fair." And it's not as if we haven't seen sometimes the female accomplice get held out ahead of sometimes the males with the bad behavior, but
Martha Stewart.
she was she was leaning into that, and people wanted to believe her, and they didn't want to look at her and be like, no, this isn't happening to you, because we know that it happens. Jen Shaw had no shame in what she would use to have people continue to perceive her as innocent and as a victim, including her own mother's 401k and retirement funds. There is nothing she would not use to protect herself.
To sit there on that stoop before she went to New York and be like, Mom, I'm just so innocent. And I'm so good. And and then she had taken her own mother's money. But I think in my mind, I'm like, she's doing that because she knows if she does go to prison, Coach has got that money, can just pay Mom back. I mean, and
Or
I want
not.
to talk about
May or not.
Or not.
yeah, I want to talk about this club fed idea, right? So it seems Teresa was in a similar club fed kind of a situation as well. Now, Teresa, they did go to trial. Is that correct? Or did they
No, they
plead?
pled.
They
They
pled.
pled.
So she went for 1 year and he went for like 4 or something, right? And now he's out of
Was
the
deported.
country.
Yeah.
Yeah, deported. So don't you think it's interesting now that Teresa's new husband, when asked on Watch What Happens Live what his job is, and he said lead generation marketing, and I just about died. I was like, really? Really? And I remember Andy goes, doesn't seem like that's going to work out so well.
I've been
That's
asked a lot to look into what uh, Louis Ruelas does, because he also
uh
seems
huh.
to be in that vague entrepreneur empowerment space that so much of the online marketing slash maybe not on the up and up happens. I
Hmm.
have not started to dig into that yet, but it's something that's definitely on the radar, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, and it's like an MLM, and then it's all this shady. I don't. It's watching him on that reunion was fascinating,
See, I haven't
right?
gotten to see that reunion yet because I'm behind, but I know you were asking about Club Fed. I think
Yeah.
there's this perception that somehow it's not prison. It's
Mm-hmm.
still prison. I mean, you're
Right.
still in prison. You are not getting your grays covered. You are not getting a facial or your eyebrows done. You are very restricted in what you can do, what you can eat, who you can communicate with. It is still an experience that strips you of all of your freedom, though you are not in a custodial situation where you're in isolation. You're not locked in a room with 2 bunks and a toilet that's made out of metal. You have a
Mm-hmm.
little bit more freedom of movement, and you can do yoga classes and a job and read books, but all of your communications are still monitored and seen if you get them at all. You're still eating prison food or trading for, beef sticks and ramen or whatever, but
Mm-hmm.
it's not the environment that Jen Shaw is used to. And you're still dealing with, others who are in custody as well, processing their own situations, and that can be very volatile. So you're not only navigating other people, but you're navigating the fact that you are left alone with yourself. And for Jen and for anybody, you're missing milestones. We
Right.
saw how much that was hard for Teresa with her parents getting sick, and
Yeah.
those things can't really be underestimated, but that is the punishment. Yes, you're not going to see your kid graduate from high school or med school or whatever. You're not going to be there for these moments in life because society has put you on a timeout for the crimes that you committed. There is a punishment to that, and it's meant to be punishment, even if it's not as, I don't know, even if it's not as tightly locked down as some other types of higher security custodial environments.
Speaking of Club Fed, so you guys did touch on the end there of Queen of the Con about Elizabeth Holmes. Now,
Yes. So that's
is
next
one to assume is
episode.
that's next season?
No, next week, episode 7, the amazing Emily D. Baker and I fuss and discuss uh,
Fuss
Elizabeth
and
Holmes.
discuss.
She
I
won.
want to see what business Elizabeth Holmes and Jen Shaw create while they're in custody together at Camp Ryan. Like, I need to
Yeah.
know, like, how these two are going to come out and be like, "We're going to save the world." Like, I'm ready for the girl bossing to happen between the
Mm.
two of them.
Boss
Stuff's going
babe
on for
hashtag.
sure.
Okay, so I was gonna ask, like, so if you do a
Sorry,
season
Jonathan.
5, is it gonna be on Elizabeth Holmes? Because you were sort of leading into it at the end of the Queen of the Con. I was like, "Oh, are they leading us right into a season 5? No break? We're going right into Elizabeth Holmes?"
I don't think. I mean, there's so much that's been done on Elizabeth Holmes brilliantly already. I don't think there's, unless something new happens that we don't know about. But she is in prison for the foreseeable years, so
Yeah.
no, we don't have a culprit. But my gosh, sadly, there are too many. There are too many queens of the con out there.
Somebody's phone is ringing.
Yeah, I think that was me.
Somebody's Skype is ringing.
Yeah, that's
Oh.
my Microsoft Teams.
Oh, uh-oh.
I
Well,
hate
I'll wrap it up and let you guys go. But that was my question was like because you were talking about Elizabeth Holmes, I was like, "Ooh, are we going to do a Real Housewives of Beverly Hills Vanderpump Rules segue from one into the next? Are we segging into Elizabeth Holmes?" But no, you're trying to find a new Queen of the Con for season 5.
Oh yeah, we're trying to find a Queen of the Con for season 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Not
It's
that hard to find, I
part
guess.
I mean, sadly, no.
part of why we ended up talking about Elizabeth Holmes was because at the time we were recording, there was so much going on with her sentencing, and there were so
Mhm.
many similarities in personality and so many similarities in how they styled what they were doing. Because Elizabeth Holmes also was like, no, I can make it work. I can get there. Like, this is how it works. It's all kind of gray zone. It's not really illegal. It's just kind of skirting the rules a little bit, just like Jen Shaw being like, oh, it's marketing practices. And so it's really fascinating to see both of them thinking like what we're doing is legitimate. We're just kind of pushing the boundaries, and isn't that what everyone does? And I found those similarities fascinating, and Jonathan and I had a wonderful conversation about that, because at the end of the day, I'm fascinated by those who commit fraud. I think it's a whole different realm of criminality that is intriguing. There's a lot of very intelligent people who find ways to skirt the rules for a period of time.
Yeah, and I think I heard you guys say like the difference between these two cons is Jen Shaw was like purposefully hurting elderly people and taking their money, where Elizabeth Holmes actually thought if I just keep getting monies from these like old white guy investors, I will be able to make it work. And she actually was sort of doing it for a cause, still bad, and still people were affected by her medical device not working. But in some way, it's like Jen Shaw's worse because she kind of knew, and Elizabeth Holmes is like, it's these old white people with lots of money. Who cares? You know?
The
I love
patients are the hard thing for
yeah.
me with Elizabeth
Yes.
Holmes. Yeah.
Yeah. Of course.
I mean, Elizabeth
The
Holmes
investors should have
was
known better.
yeah,
Yeah.
Elizabeth Holmes was definitely pure in intent, where Jen Shaw had no pure intent. But Emily points out, they're both charged with the same crime, and they're both in the same prison now. So at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter that much.
Yeah. Well, you guys, when you get to the end of Queen of the Con, you will hear some familiar voices. If you're a podcast fan, reality TV fan, you'll hear my friend Kate Casey is on there. You'll hear Carlos King on there. And they give really great insights into the reality aspect of it and sort of the narcissism of it. And I loved how the whole show sort of wraps up into this Elizabeth Holmes things, go back into Jen Shaw and the possibilities, what these two are creating in prison together. It's just great. The whole Queen of the Con, season 4, just 5 stars. So
Thank,
good.
thank you so much. I
So
appreciate
good.
Thank you, Mary. Jonathan did a tremendous amount of work. I mean, my podcast is breaking stories and legal breakdowns. The tenacity in tracking people down and having conversations, and the amount of legwork that goes in to a
Yeah.
podcast like Queen of the Con and into Queen of the Con is really tremendous. And there were stories I learned so much from being a part of this season, and I'm so thankful for it. So
it. Thank you, and I'm
Jonathan, it's a tremendous amount of work. It's really
yes.
a
Yes.
It
wonderful
is, but
podcast.
having you involved was just amazing, and you were amazing, and I can't wait for people to listen to this season because really, you, Emily D. Baker, you shine. Your insight, your takeaway, your knowledge, you made me a better, smarter person, and I'm grateful to have worked with you on this. People are going to love it.
I
Yeah.
think they already do, and I loved working with you too. So thank you, Mary, for letting us have a conversation about it.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Mary.
And tell everybody where they can find you guys.
Queen of the Con, anywhere you get your podcast, just search Queen of the Con, and Emily D. Baker is everywhere.
I'm the Emily D. Baker everywhere. I live stream on YouTube, court
Yep.
coverage, and breaking down legal documents. The Emily Show podcast is, as Jonathan said, meticulous deep dives into all the legal filings. Lately, I've been covering everything going
Love
on
your
with the
Lizzo. Your Lizzo. You did like an hour on the Lizzo charges. The Lizzo complaint.
Ooh, I need to listen
yeah,
to that.
from
Yes,
Lizzo and Scientology to the blind side. Those are the last few episodes on the Emily Show. So we take the legal documents and break it all down.
Because it's
I
stuff that's
love
not
it.
reported in the press, you know. She
They
really
Yeah,
get
you
the
just get
headlines
the
wrong all the time. I get so
do.
annoyed. I'm like, the
Yeah.
headline says this is a lawsuit. First of all, no. Second of all, no.
yeah, you guys know I'm always been a fan of Emily, and I'm always listening and saying, "Oh, well,
Thank
Emily D. Baker
you.
said this, and Emily D. Baker said that." So you guys make sure you follow Queen of the Con. Season 4 is excellent. You guys know a friend of mine, Eliza Rosen, is the producer on it as well, and we always support what Eliza does. So follow Queen of the Quan. Queen of the Quan, Queen of the Con, and follow Emily D. Baker wherever you get your podcast. And thank you guys very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ads not read by me, Mary Payne, don't necessarily reflect the views of Pink Shade. If you'd like to listen to ad-free, you're going to go on over to Supercast or Patreon, and you can find the links to Pink Shade Prime at pinkshadepodcast.com.